We begin with this Fox News alert. President Trump sticking by diplomacy with indirect nuclear talks with Iran. But fierce power is on the way. Everything is on the table. The president is adding a weapon to the U.S. aircraft carriers, fighter jets, and weapons that he's already sent to the Middle East. He's called it an armada. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. That armada includes the world's largest warship, the USS Gerald Ford, which is now on its way there. The USS Abraham Lincoln arrived to the region late last month. Axios reporting with this headline: Trump moves closer to a major war with Iran. A U.S. military operation in Iran would likely be a massive weeks-long campaign that would look more like full-fledged war than last month's pinpoint operation in Venezuela, sources say. Such a war would have a dramatic influence on the entire region and major implications for the remaining 3 years of the Trump presidency. All of that in Axios. And this, the Vice President, J.D. Vance.
We do have a very powerful military. The president's shown a willingness to use it. He also has a remarkable diplomatic team. He's shown a willingness to use that, too. Our primary interest here is we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. We don't want nuclear proliferation. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, there are a lot of other regimes, some friendly, some not so friendly, who would get nuclear weapons after them. That would be a disaster for the American people. The president has all options on the table.
Chief International Correspondent Trey Yingst. Trey.
Harris, good morning. A massive amount of U.S. military equipment continues to flood into the Middle East in preparation for action against Iran. Reports indicate the U.S. has moved more than 50 fighter jets to the region over the past 24 hours alone. Along with the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group already in place and the USS Gerald R. Ford on the way, there are a variety of other U.S. Navy assets in the Red and Mediterranean seas. While talks on Tuesday left both sides saying that progress was made, there are still major questions about Iran's willingness to curb their nuclear program or address the growing regional ballistic missile threat. Yesterday on Fox News, Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about the negotiations.
They agreed to meet afterwards, but in other ways it was very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it, but of course the president reserves the ability to say when he thinks that diplomacy has reached its natural end. We hope we don't get to that point, but if we do, that'll be the president's call.
The Iranians continue to threaten the United States. From the supreme leader to lower-level commanders, the IRGC has promised to go after American military interests in the event of escalation in the region. Iran's president has tried to strike a more diplomatic tone on nuclear issues, despite the threatening rhetoric from the rest of Iranian leadership.
We have stated these many times. My own statements are not important. What matters from an ideological standpoint is the policy and the fatwa of the supreme leader. We are in no way seeking nuclear weapons. Whatever form of verification they want to carry out, we are ready for that verification to take place.
Here in Israel, officials reportedly believe war could erupt in a matter of days and are preparing accordingly. Harris?
Great reporting as always. Thank you for getting us started, Trey Yingst.
Couple of months with the protests, they've killed at least, it looks like 32,000 protests, 32,000 protesters in their own country. They shot them and hung them. We stopped them from hanging a lot of them with the threat of serious violence, but this is some terrible people. They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America. After Midnight Hammer, they were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue, starting it all over. We wiped it out, and they want to start all over again, and are at this moment again pursuing their sinister ambitions. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen.
Talks between the United States and Iran over Tehran's nuclear program have ended without a deal. Hours of indirect negotiations in Switzerland reportedly made significant progress, but no breakthrough. Iranian state TV says Tehran plans to keep enriching uranium, rejects sending it abroad, and wants international sanctions lifted. Meanwhile, the U.S. has positioned a massive fleet of aircraft and warships in the region.
There would be no victory for anybody. It would be a devastating war. Since the Americans' bases are scattered in different places in the region, then unfortunately, perhaps the whole region would be engaged and would be involved. So it is a terrible scenario, and we have learned lots of lessons from the last war. So we are even more prepared. And that means, by the way, that the aim is to prevent a war. We are ready to remove concerns, but we are not ready to give up our right for peaceful use of nuclear technology. This is what we demand.
The most powerful aircraft carrier on Earth is now off Israel's coast, the USS Gerald R. Ford. And the question everyone is asking tonight, is the US preparing to strike Iran within hours? On February 27, 2026, the USS Gerald R. Ford, America's largest and most advanced aircraft carrier, arrived in the eastern Mediterranean near Israel. The 100,000-ton nuclear-powered supercarrier left Souda Bay in Crete just a day earlier. Now it's operating near Israel's northern coastline, close to Haifa. This is not routine. The Ford carries more than 75 aircraft, advanced fighter jets, electronic warfare systems, missile defense capabilities. It is essentially a floating airbase capable of launching sustained combat operations. And it's not alone. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is already in the broader region. 2 U.S. supercarriers in the same theater. That's rare, and it sends a message. This deployment comes just as the third round of the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks in Geneva ended without a breakthrough. Oman says significant progress was made, but no deal. No agreement on enrichment limits. No clarity on Iran's nuclear sites. Meanwhile, Washington is reportedly demanding zero uranium enrichment, dismantling of key nuclear facilities, permanent restrictions, and minimal sanctions relief unless full compliance. Tehran, on the other hand, has warned that U.S. carriers remain within missile range. President Trump's administration has openly discussed military options if diplomacy fails. Iran has continued enrichment activity. Israel has warned it will not allow Iran to reach nuclear weapon capability. Now, the most advanced U.S. carrier ever built is sitting off Israel's coast. There is no official confirmation of an imminent attack, but military analysts say carrier positioning like this provides rapid strike capability if ordered. If diplomacy collapses, the infrastructure for action is already in place. This is one of the largest U.S. naval buildups in the Middle East in decades. Supporters call it deterrence. Critics call it escalation. Either way, the message is unmistakable. The USS Gerald R. Ford has arrived. Talks with Iran remain fragile. Missiles are within range on both sides. The world is watching the Mediterranean tonight.
All right, the latest that we are tracking at this point, China has now urged its citizens to evacuate Iran. In fact, the state media announced that all Chinese citizens should avoid traveling to Iran right now amid the escalating tensions between Tehran and Washington. And all Chinese citizens presently in Iran were asked to evacuate as soon as possible. That's the latest just coming in amid the tensions in West Asia. In fact, China joining that long list of countries that have urged their citizens to leave Iran amid the worsening security situation and amid those tensions. In fact, the U.S. has engaged in a massive military buildup around Iran. We've been telling you about that. This while nuclear talks between the two sides have been taking place. The third round of talks just concluded in Geneva earlier without a deal. And Iran is urging the U.S. to drop its excessive demands in order for a nuclear deal to get finalized. But in the latest, the U.S. has also issued an advisory for its embassy staff in Israel as the possibility of strikes looms large. And amid those tensions, Iran and the U.S. are also set to resume technical level discussions in Vienna next week. So that's the latest coming in at this point, the way things stand. In the latest, China also urging its citizens to leave Iran given the current situation.
Despite ongoing negotiations, the main question in Washington is when will the U.S. strike Iran? The U.S. military leadership has been briefing President Trump on his options.
Meanwhile, the United States Embassy in Israel is advising staff to leave now if they want to go, as the risk of war continues to grow. Joshua Swanson brings us the story from Jerusalem.
The threat of war with Iran still looms, despite another round of peace negotiations in Geneva this week. While both Washington and Tehran signaled a willingness to keep talking, no agreement was reached. U.S. and Iranian officials agreed to continue discussions next week. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi claimed progress was made toward a possible resolution.
I can say that we made good progress after several hours of intensive negotiations. We have started serious discussions about the elements of a deal, both in the field of nuclear issues and the removal of sanctions.
Yet conflicting reports suggest the sides remain far apart. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner demanded that Tehran dismantle all nuclear sites and turn over enriched uranium. In Washington, the U.S. Central Command Chief reportedly briefed President Trump on potential strike options as the United States continues building up a massive force in the region. With the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier approaching the coast of Haifa, Politico reports some U.S. senior advisors are urging the president to allow Israel to strike first. One person familiar with the discussion said there's thinking in and around the administration that the politics are a lot better if the Israelis go first and alone, and the Iranians retaliate. As questions grow over whether diplomacy can succeed, the focus in Washington appears to be shifting from if to when and how a potential strike could occur. Here in Israel, the U.S. Embassy has now authorized the departure of non-essential personnel because of security risks. Also in Jerusalem, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered a historic address to the Knesset.
India stands with Israel firmly, with full conviction in this moment and beyond.
Modi also emphasized the shared heritage of two ancient civilizations and deepening strategic ties between the democracies. On Israel's northern border, the IDF struck 8 Hezbollah military compounds. The sites reportedly stored firearms and rockets and were used by the Radwan force for training, in violation of the ceasefire. And the Jerusalem Post reports the Palestinian Authority in 2025 transferred $500 million shekels under its Pay for Slay program. Funds were distributed to families of terrorists, and critics charge Western countries with indirectly subsidizing this program, since the PA can divert funds from its general budget. Joshua Swanson, CBN News, Jerusalem.